Hi peers, and welcome to my video all about the what and the why and when of how I annotate books. So let's start off with a fun fact. I never once annotated a book in my life until I was in my 30s, which is when I went back to college. So obviously my time in school influenced my annotating technique, especially the what I annotate and why I annotated parts. But my annotations have extremely recently been undergoing a bit of a reevaluation and some changes. As recently as literally yesterday, 10 minutes before you commented on my pencil tweet. I was in the middle of implementing a new process when you commented, actually. So that's how extremely recently they've been undergoing some new consideration. So like I told you yesterday, this is going to be really long because I think things make more sense when you know the whys behind them. So we're going to start at the beginning of my annotating experience. So it makes sense how I got to where I am today with some brand new stuff that I started yesterday. So let's go. Let's start with what I don't annotate, because there is stuff I don't annotate, like all of this fiction around me. I don't annotate the fiction that I read for fun. Initially, this is because the idea never occurred to me, never crossed my mind. And even once I was in college, when I was marking up my textbooks, I never made the connection between that and hobby reading. So it wasn't until I got on Book Talk and started to see all those people with all of their heavily annotated novels, and I was like, what? Maybe I want to do that. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I decided to keep all of my annotations for schoolwork and keep my hobby reading as labor-free as possible. So, since graduating, I've tossed the idea of annotating for fun around, and very recently, like 2 weeks ago recently, I actually tried annotating a novel I was reading for fun, which was this one. As you can see now, there's nothing in it. There's no annotations and there's no tabs because I got about 20% of the way in and I wasn't seeing a payoff for it, and I didn't enjoy it to make it and like make the effort worth it. So I went and removed all of the post-it notes and tabs. And because of that experience, as it stands now, I am not, and I don't have any intention to annotate the books that I read for entertainment. What do I annotate, and how, and why? And a secret new question: what am I going to do after I annotate? So what I do annotate is fiction I'm studying and nonfiction. So we're going to start with fiction because that's what I have the most examples of, and it's really been the focus of the ongoing development of my annotating technique because that's what I have a degree in and I'm pursuing as a career. So I want to be good at that. So in the very beginning, there were anthologies. These obviously are not exclusively fiction because they have like the abbreviated author bios in them and stuff, and especially in the early, this is an American literature anthology set, but in the early ones they've got stuff like the Federalist Papers, and so it's not all exclusively fiction, but it's mostly fiction because it's American literature. And you might notice that there's tabs in all of them, lots of tabs in all of them. But those tabs are my reading assignments. They don't mark anything. They don't do anything. Those are just literally what I was assigned to read in class. And I would put a tab on them so I could find the reading assignments. I marked some examples of my early annotations. So let's look at those. This is Washington Irving. It also says in my notes for this video to not get distracted talking about Washington Irving. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Washington Irving, let me know. I'll make you a new video. So anyway, you can see that, like, I hope you can see at least, there's just a couple things underlined, and then there's just like a few comments in the margins, but it's not very much, right? It's not very helpful. It doesn't really, like this one literally is just a reaction that says mood. Like, what's that doing for me? Nothing. So let's look at another one. This is Nathaniel Hawthorne, Young Goodman Brown. And you can see that it's, well, I hope you can see that it's more heavily annotated. There's a lot more underlined. There's more comments in the margins. That's sustained throughout the length of the work. God, I hope you can see some of that. But a key difference here is that I wrote a short explication about Young Goodman Brown. So these are not my initial annotations from the first time I read this short story. These are a lot of my annotations from when I was returning to the short story to write specifically about it. So these are more purposeful and intentional annotations, not my first read through. That's basically the form that my early annotations took, really casual comments or reactions to the text, and not a whole lot of them. And then if I came back later, there would be more, and they'd be more detailed. So yeah, obviously that was early on when I was in college. As I worked my way through classes, I got better at close reading, which meant that my annotations got better. So in this book, Wake by Rebecca Hall, it looks again like it's tabbed. It's not. Those are just where my annotations poke out, because this is a graphic novel. I didn't write directly on any of the pages. They're all on post-it notes. Let's see if you can kind of see some of these here. So you can see how I would stick them on the drawings with my comments. You'll see that there's more of them. You'll see that they're generally longer. I would like to think that they're of better quality than my earlier annotations. And I can say with confidence that these are the annotations, one, because I remember doing them, but these are the annotations from my first read through of this book. I didn't write a paper specifically about this text. I'm going to hold it up here so everybody can see it, because it's an amazing and incredible text. I didn't write a paper about it, but I referenced it in a paper I was writing about accessibility to knowledge, which is a theme in this book Rebecca Hall talks about, and also is inherent in its format as a graphic novel instead of being published as a series of articles in academic journals, because Rebecca Hall is a scholar and she deliberately chose to publish her research as a graphic novel instead of putting it behind an academic journal paywall. So not a specific paper about this. These are all just my first notes, and they're much more thorough and insightful, I think. Then we get to the picture of Dorian Gray. So it was with this text that I realized I wanted to be able to distinguish my thoughts from my initial first read through and any subsequent read through. So again, there's not a whole lot of tabs. The only purpose it serves is to indicate where my reading places are. And then at the top, there is a key that lets me know that my original annotations are in pencil and my second read through annotations are in this blue color erase pencil. As you can see, I hope, my first read through, all of the stuff that's marked and indicated in regular pencil, was pretty nice and thorough. And then my second read through amplified that. All of the stuff that's in blue. Let's see, there we go. All the stuff that's in blue was notes I took on my second read through. And this is an excellent example of why I annotate in some cases. So obviously my first annotations are just my notes and my processing, and they tend to be pretty general. Things I like, don't like, things I think will come up or are particularly relevant, themes, symbols, any questions I have, reactions. It's just kind of a general read through, and I can use that later to see if I've noticed anything through the text or if anything has particularly piqued my interest I want to do more research on. And then any subsequent readings tend to be for a specific purpose. So for example, with this one, which is when I instituted my 2-color technique, I wanted to write a paper that was examining the ways that gay men experienced internalized homophobia in Victorian England. And so the blue annotations mark the parts of the text. I don't even know if there's blue on that page. There's a little bit. The blue marks the part of the text that is relevant to that topic. And because I know the purpose behind those color differentiations, these annotations are more useful to me when I return to the text. Like, say I decide to read this again and annotate it again. Maybe I'll do purple next time. I will know pencil is my general read through. Blue is the read through looking for parts of the story that support or contradict or provide detail to give examples of internalized homophobia. And then purple could be for, a whole new purpose. So that's very useful, and it carries information forward, which is important. This technique is, ever since this book, something that I have carried forward. I don't always read text multiple times, but when I do, I take notes in that way. One of the most tragic examples, and this is going to be relevant in a bit, one of the most tragic examples of where my annotation technique has failed is in the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which should have 2 sets of annotations inside and does not. Let's see if I can find my note. Yep. First read through online, add notes in different color. Second read through May of 2021. If we flip through here, you might notice that there are no notes in a different color. And that would be because we read this text in class. My professor used an online digital text that the entire class had access to, and we could make our own annotations, but also have conversations with each other in the annotations. And I lost access to that text before I could transfer my annotations into this text. So all of these are from my second read through, which was when I was writing a paper about the uncanny valley in relation to Mr. Hyde. And so these annotations are very focused. They are very focused on the parts that Mr. Hyde is in and his appearance and the way people react to him. And they are not at all about the story in general or overarching themes or much of anything else. And I think I said it was tragic, and I think that that's accurate, because you can never have a second first impression of a book, and you can never read a book for the first time more than once. And so I'll never have those notes. And I don't remember what I was thinking or how I reacted in real time to the text. And I think that that's a pretty significant loss. So that's an important thing to remember in the future. And the last development in my annotation style technique that occurred while I was in college came from this book. One, there's 2 things here. One, the book itself, and one, something from inside the book. For the first time ever, the tabs serve a purpose. There's tabs stored in the front for me to use while reading the book. There's more than one color. Did I make a note of what the colors were for? No, I did not. So let's see if I remember. The yellow ones I definitely know are for the chapters. If you go through and you look, they're all... Well, I picked the worst tab to turn to. Goodness. They all mark chapters. They're for chapters. Then there's the 2 pink ones, hot pink and different hot pink. And these ones that are scattered throughout, these lighter hot pink ones, these were marking specific passages that had advice I wanted to return to or suggestions I wanted to return to. Pink ones down here, these darker hot pink ones, they seem intentional, right? Like they're pretty evenly spaced, but they're only in the front of the book, and then there's 2 up at the top here. I don't know what they're for. Looking at the pages they're marked at, I have no idea what they're for, and I don't have anything to tell me what they're for, which makes them useless. The second thing that I got from this book expands notations beyond the margins, or post-it notes, because I like post-it notes as well, and into actual notes. Gregory Semenza, the guy who wrote this book, he recommends that you take notes on paper as you read. You put the citation info across the top, and then you take your notes and you make sure that you write down the page number that information came from. And then when you're done, you take those notes out of your notebook and you stick them in the book before you go put it back on the shelf. So then your notes about your reading are with the thing that you read. I love this idea. I love it. Have I done it? Not really, for a couple reasons. In part, I read this book the semester before I graduated, so not a whole lot of time to implement anything that I learned from it. And secondly, the text that I did read after I read this book, I mostly listened to on audiobook. So there are no notes and there are no annotations for those texts. For example, Anne of Green Gables. This was one of 6 novels that I read for my internship in my last semester of college. And if you look inside, here at the top, first read through, I have my date, and then it's probably too small to read, but here at the very, very, very end, it says, notes few completed on audiobook. And if we flip through, you will see that there is nothing. There is nothing. There is no annotations in this book beyond a few words on this page. That's it. And these papers that I took out of the book, they're not reading notes. They're notes that I took when I had my weekly meeting with my professor for my internship. So they are notes about and related to the text, but they are not notes I took while reading the text. And also this says Anne of Avonlea, because Anne of Avonlea was actually the text that we agreed on in my reading list, and I voluntarily added Anne of Green Gables to that because I love Anne Shirley a whole lot. So I graduated, took the summer off from thinking, moved across the country, started a new job, and I haven't done any annotating until this past summer. Enter nonfiction. Did I read nonfiction in school? Yes, obviously. Did I annotate those texts? No, because I skimmed and moved on with my life, with a few exceptions. This summer is when I really started to feel the itch to get back into like academic style work. So I took up and went back to doing my volunteer work with the Periodical Poetry Index, which is where I did my internship. And then I started reading the books that I'd been meaning to read. Like there were some that I had bought while I was in school on topics I was interested in and didn't have time to pursue. And also just some others I've been buying and now I'm reading them, which means that I'm back to annotating. And these are the books that I'm currently reading. Ugh. These two. It's Love, Activism, and the Respectable Life of Alice Dunbar Nelson by Tara Green. I have another note saying I should not get sidetracked talking about Alice Dunbar Nelson, but it's so hard. I love her. My annotations have proceeded as normal. I've made my notation when I first started my read through. No tabs. You'll see there's no tabs, but there is underlining and margin comments. Occasionally a post-it note. This one's actually 2 post-it notes stacked on top of each other. So anyway, normal annotations, the way that I normally do annotations. So this book, Pioneer Girl, is slightly different in annotating while also being exactly the same. The same part is that I'm still underlining comments in the margin, no tabs. The part that's different is the how. How am I doing that? And there's 2 key factors that are affecting that how. And the first factor is that I don't want to write in this book. It's really nice. It's really beautiful. It was really expensive and I want to keep it nice. It's very beautiful and I want to keep it that way. So transparent post-it notes are my friend here. I love these things. They're super cool. I started using them in college to annotate library books, so I'm very fond of them. The other difference with this book is the way that it is formatted. Pioneer Girl is the original manuscript that Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote that would eventually become the Little House books. And this is that manuscript annotated by the experts. So inside the book is the main body of text. Ooh, I'm going to do my best. The main body of text, which is like the manuscript that she wrote. And then there's the annotations. I hope you're ready for this. The annotations. And the annotations. And the annotations. So, this affects the way you read the text. I'm like, the annotations are great. They add a ton of context, history, information, tons of stuff. But there's a lot of them, and it affects the way you read the book. If you have to turn 3 pages to get to the next main part of content, it affects the way you read. So, in deliberating how I wanted to tackle this book, I made a few decisions. And so what I decided is that the people who have put this together have divided Laura Ingalls Wilder's manuscript into sections based on location, because her family moved. That was kind of the whole thing, is they were here, and then they were here, and then they were here, and then they were here, and they moved. And so the sections are like the places that they lived, and I'm treating those like chapters basically. So I read the main text, the manuscript, Pioneer Girl by Laura Ingalls Wilder, from beginning to end of section. And I annotate those parts on these yellow post-it notes only. That is how I'm annotating the main body of text. See if I have another example of this. Yeah, so here's another one. And then once I have completed the section, I go back to the beginning and I read the annotations. And then those I annotate with my transparent post-it note. Let me see if I can, so I'm not actually writing on any of the page. And that kind of serves a similar function to my 2 colors system, in that I will always know that the yellow post-it notes are my thoughts and reactions and comments on the manuscript itself, and all of the transparent on the page annotations are my thoughts, comments, reactions to the annotations. And in that way, I'll never get my information confused as to what I'm talking about. However, I am taking a break from reading these. Temporary break. I'm taking a temporary break from reading these because I kind of fell down a rabbit hole recently. You remember how I said 2 weeks ago I experimented with annotating a novel for fun? Well, in the course of considering if I wanted to try that over the summer, I started watching videos. I started watching videos about how people like to annotate their books because I was curious. Maybe there's a different technique out there that I think could be better or more useful than my own. One of those videos was Plant-Based Bride, whom we love and adore, and brought about the tabs, which I know you are familiar with. And in addition to, obviously I bought them, that comes with the intention of using them and using them with purpose. So that is a part of my going forward plan. And the other extremely impactful video was from a YouTuber named Morgan EUA or Morgan Eula. I don't know if you're supposed to say that part out loud or not, but her name is Morgan. And the video that I saw was called How I Annotate Books as a PhD Student. And as an aspiring PhD student, that sounded interesting and relevant. So in that video, Morgan mentions her permanent note system, her Zettelkasten in Obsidian, and how the notes she's taking now won't just be for this one project, but they'll be useful in any other future projects without her necessarily having to reread the text that her notes came from, because the notes she's taking now are going to be so thorough and they will be in a continually useful form. So I was intrigued and I started to watch more videos and more videos and more videos. And I learned more about the Zettelkasten system and about Obsidian, and all of it culminated with me downloading Obsidian onto my computer and purchasing this book. First read through, September 1 to September 30. Literally had just finished reading this. This book is about the Zettelkasten system of note taking and note having and note using. It's really simple. You read a book, watch a video, take in knowledge, have thoughts, whatever, and you take fleeting notes, which are temporary notes to remind you of the thought or idea or information that you want to collect. And then you go through and you take that fleeting note and you expand it into a fully formed note, developing the idea, referencing the source, and that is the permanent note that goes into the Zettelkasten. And each permanent note has a unique identifier, so it can be easily found later. Once you have your notes in your Zettelkasten, and this might be the most critical and the part I'm most excited about, the most critical part is that you make connections between those other notes. You're like, oh, this reminded me of this other thing, and you go find that note and you link them together. So what that does is it kind of ends up taking all of your knowledge that you've been accumulating, and it builds this web of interconnected knowledge, and all those little bits of information, like, they connect in new and interesting ways, and they build on each other, and all the notes you've ever taken are right there, still being useful forever, theoretically. So what does this mean for my annotations now? Both not much and a whole lot. And that's why I stopped reading those two books temporarily, is because if I was going to do this, I wanted to be able to put notes from them into that system. I've always kept my notes. Like, I have a whole section on my bookshelf over there dedicated to all of my college notes. I still have notes that I took in 2005 when I was in university for the first time, and I was not a good student, but I still have my notes. I just never used them. I haven't used those old notes. I haven't used the notes that I took in school more recently. Like, they just sit there. And like, if I did try to use them, because like I know how I took notes, and all the notes in those notebooks, they're not reading notes. Like, are they still helpful outside of the context of the classroom discussions where I took those notes? My color-coded notes in my books are more useful, but they're still isolated in those books. Like, they're on a shelf, separate, put away. Like, they're not useful. None of it is useful to me anymore. And the pink tabs, I don't even know what the pink tabs are for. Like, none of it is useful. But now, with this system, it doesn't just keep notes, it doesn't just hold them, but it keeps them active as you put new notes in and you make connections between them. All of the notes that I take will be useful and accessible. And so where I'm at is the beginning. I have not put a single note in my Zettelkasten yet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this book, because there are notes and ideas that I want to save out of here, and I'm going to practice making those permanent notes and putting them in my Zettelkasten. And the tabs that are in here, like I said, I was going to use tabs more intentionally. They do mean things. Like, they're color-coded. The gray ones are notes I definitely, absolutely want to take. Blue is stuff to revisit and decide, do I want to note? Do I not want to note? There's some green ones in here, and those are ideas that were related to things I'd already been thinking about, and so I wanted to draw different attention to those. All that will change depending on the book or whatever I need to be noting. But so once I'm done with this, once I'm done going through and putting the notes from this into my Zettelkasten, I'm going to go back to this one, because I'm only halfway through. I'm going to go through this one, and I'm going to go through the parts that I have read, and I'm going to take my annotations, aka my fleeting notes. I'm going to take my annotations, and I'm going to turn those into permanent notes in my Zettelkasten, and then I'm going to move on to my next book. Well, I'm going to finish this one, and then I'm going to move on to my next book. I'm planning to read my 2 Kate Chopin biographies, and then I'm going to read my Mary E. Wilkins Freeman biography. I have a project that I'm working on, and I'll do the exact same thing. I'm going to read, annotate, turn the annotations and notes, build those connections. I do have a problem. Like, there's a problem that I haven't quite figured out yet. And that problem is that I'm not entirely sure how to implement Zettelkasten system with fiction. Obviously, with my degree and my chosen career path, notes on fiction are really important. But for me, notes on fiction are not the same as notes on nonfiction. They don't take the same form. I'm not looking for the same things. I'm not noticing the same things. Like, fiction and nonfiction are different, and my notes on them are different. And that's part of what motivated me to try annotating a novel for fun. Aside from being curious, as if I'd like to do it, because it's something that's kind of been floating around in my head for a while, I was kind of considering how it would work in the Zenelkasten. And also, can you imagine, like, what it would be like if I had notes on everything I had ever read? Like, holy crap. Anyway, I haven't found anyone online who uses Zenelkasten with fiction. Like, there's been a couple social scientists, and mostly social scientists, that do this. So I think I'm just gonna have to puzzle my way through it. Morgan has a video about annotating and tracking her non-academic reading, but it's not really super helpful because she isn't taking notes from fiction in the way that a literature student would, and she's generally more interested in tracking than note-taking. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to experiment. I'm just gonna have to kind of figure it out and forge my own path. So to summarize where I'm at now, my annotating technique will not be changing. I will still be underlining, writing in the margins, on post-it notes when I need to. I am going to be adding tabs to the mix. The big change is going to be what I do with my annotations after I'm done annotating, which is the permanent notes and the Zettelkasten, which prolongs their life and makes them useful and functional forever, maybe, hopefully. So that's the history and the current place I'm at with annotations. So let's talk about tools, of which there are not many, because even though I like to have stuff, I enjoy stuff, I like to have it around me, I don't like having stuff to carry with me. And I also think that too many tools like clutters up your brain and my thinking, because I end up thinking about what tool to use instead of just reading and making notes. Like, very straightforward. So I have 2 pencil bags. I have my everyday pencil bag that goes with me everywhere that we're not looking in, unless you want to. Let me know if you want to look in my pencil bag. And then I have my annotating bag, which goes wherever the book I'm currently annotating goes. I feel like you can probably guess what's in here based on what you've seen inside my books, because it's not much. I've got a pencil, and yes, this is the lavender pencil because I love pencils. I make a ton of mistakes all the time. I write notes next to the wrong line. I need to move them. My underlines get crooked, and I gotta erase and fix them. Like, I spell things wrong. I make a lot of mistakes. I love pencils because they have erasers. Even my color erase pencils have erasers. It's in the name, color erase. So yeah, I basically annotate in pencil all of the time. I do have a pen. This is Pentel Arts Hybrid Technica in the 0.3 millimeter nib. It is very fine. Also, from the Plant-Based Bride video, I love trying pens, so of course I bought one. However, I don't write in books in pen, so it's kind of useless. It's a little bit too fine and scratchy for day-to-day writing for me. I like the pens that I'm using already. So this is just kind of in my pencil bag to try to force me to use it. It's not working very well, so I don't know. But it's in there in case I need a pen. And then I've got post-it notes is pretty much the rest of what's in here. I've got my little yellow post-it notes. I love these guys. I've got big yellow post-it notes in case I need to take bigger notes. And then I have a ton of the transparent post-its in various sizes because, like, who doesn't love a good transparent post-it note? The pen does not write on the transparent post-it notes. but the pencil does. Plant-Based Bride said she used Sharpies, which is honestly not anything I had ever considered before. So that was an interesting concept. Again, I just don't write in pen. I make mistakes. I want to be able to erase, even on my clear post-it notes. And then the only other thing I have in there right now, and this is not normal, is extra tabs. I ran out of the rounded ones. I needed to switch to these. So these are just backup tabs. And that's it. That's literally it. Pencil, pen, post-its. My whole annotating kit. I'm a very complex person, obviously. I would add in the color erase pencil if I was doing like a second or third read through of a book. And that's it. That's everything all about annotations of who's and when's and why's and where's and what's and things I like and things I don't care about and where I'm at now and next steps, and that's it. It's everything. I hope that this video is everything you hoped for and not more than you asked for. Bye.